there, boys and girls, another lovely video for you from whatculture.com, and this time, as you probably guessed by the title, it's all about Corey Graves' After the Bell podcast and an interview he did recently with Triple H. Now, Corey Graves has managed to create something pretty great with these podcasts that he does. He gets some good guests, he gets some really good interviews out of a lot of people. We always tend to get a little nugget or two of information, and we've decided it's worth trying to really track them all down, put them together and put them in a list. And specifically, he had Mr. Triple H, The Game, as his guest on the podcast this week, and I think we can all agree it's a pretty good interview. Now, as you may or may not have seen, we are celebrating 25 years of Triple H. It's the 25th anniversary of the King of Kings, The Game, the ass kicker, etc, etc. Interesting time to be doing this, but nevertheless, let's talk about the thing instead of talking about all of the other things that are going wrong at the minute that make this feel weird. Triple H celebrating his career, and he's obviously going to be getting around as many places as possible. He's been on The Bump, on WWE's The Bump, talking about a few things. Got a lovely little guest shout out there from The Rock. But most importantly, he's on Corey Graves' podcast recently, and he had a lot to say about WWE, as you can imagine. Now, there was a lot to dig into during this 1 hour chat. As you can imagine, The Game is a man who has many things to tell you, all things when it comes to WWE. He gave a few tidbits, some interesting ones like what Vince McMahon told him before the Bornyard match, what he wanted from that, because Triple H was producing it. He was asked and told us his thoughts on the 2-day WrestleMania. Does it work? Is it right for WWE moving forward, perhaps, from this point on? And on top of that, we also found out whose idea it was to actually shoot WrestleMania and all these empty shows in the WWE Performance Center. Now, that and many more things you can find out on this video, so let's not waste any more time. My name is Adam Nicholas, this is What Culture Wrestling, and these are 10 things we learned from Triple H on WWE's After the Bell. Number 10, he thought the anniversary talk was a rib. Now, as I've just mentioned in the intro, we are indeed in the midst of a 25-year celebration of Triple H. He's been all over the place doing various different bits of media to celebrate his 25 years in the business. But Triple H himself didn't actually think this was a real thing. Now, he said that when several people backstage were talking about this and discussing the possibilities of doing it all, he just assumed that it was going to be some kind of rib. I guess that kind of tells you everything you need to know about working with Vince McMahon in that environment. But he was absolutely certain that he was going to get all prepared for this, and then Vince was going to come in and basically tell him, "Ha, you are the drizzling shits, my friend." He said that's exactly where his mindset was. He didn't really think that anybody was going to care about that milestone. He says it wasn't really a thing. Now, if we know Triple H, he was counting the literal days for this, and he'll have known that it was 25 years. I fail to believe that he didn't have that landmark in his head. But whether or not other people were going to talk about it, he was kind of either being a bit bashful, or maybe he was just trying to be a bit modest. Either way, he sort of said, given everything that's going on, maybe this wouldn't have been a top priority. You can understand it, but still, it feels very WWE, this, doesn't it? But Triple H did tell Corey Graves that he felt like looking back on his career with all of this has kind of given him a new perspective, and he's able to appreciate things a bit more, because when you're in the middle of the machine, it's just match after match after match, and you never really get a chance to stop and smell the roses. Well, smell them right up now, Hunter, because 25 years, that must be a pretty smelly old rose. Number 9, it was his idea to shoot from the PC. Now, yes, I'm sure this doesn't come as much surprise, but Triple H was the man who came up with the idea for WWE to shoot inside the Performance Center. That's for episodes of SmackDown, Raw, NXT. But apparently, while that was his idea, technically, they did actually have plans to do this right before all of the global crisis started to happen and everything went a bit upside down. There was actually an episode of NXT that was scheduled to be shot at the Performance Center. That was the 10-year celebration episode where they were going to treat the fans to them getting essentially a private viewing of NXT at the Performance Center. So that was already in the works. Triple H already kind of knew how it could potentially look if they were going to set up a ring and all that sort of thing. And we've also seen it for the halftime Heat performance. So this was all stuff they'd done already, and he had the best knowledge when it came to how to do all of this. Ultimately, though, there was a phone conversation between Vince McMahon and Triple H regarding what exactly they should do moving forward, because obviously they weren't going to be able to go and record WrestleManias and Raws and SmackDown as usual. Hunter essentially just told the truth, gave him his honest opinion, and said that they pretty much had no choice but to film in the Performance Center. So he kind of got the blessing. Vince said yes and told Hunter he'd have to go and crunch the numbers. Now, obviously, that is in reference to the fact that WWE were going to be losing a lot of money on ticket sales and the potential touring revenue they were going to lose to go with that. But ultimately, didn't really have a choice. So it was the Performance Center all the way, and it was Triple H, technically, who was the man who came up with it. Number 8, the PC used to be a junk store. Now obviously when it came to using the Performance Center for the likes of WrestleMania, they had to spruce it up a little bit, because while it was potentially ready for people to be in there anyway, it wasn't quite TV ready. But Triple H said it didn't actually take much doing to get it into the kind of shape and condition it needed to be for TV. I mean, let's be honest, he said they were happy to show some of the warehouse-esque elements to it, like when we saw the Randy Orton Edge match. We got a few bits backstage that didn't look like they were completely and utterly studio ready as they would maybe on Monday Night Raw, but that was cool. It added a little bit of a different element, and it was almost like a bit of a backstage or behind the scenes documentary of the Performance Center on top of WrestleMania. The game, however, was quick to remind Corey Graves of what it used to be before it was turned into the Performance Center. He said essentially the building was used as a knick-knack store, ultimately, where they would just keep loads of old things. It was just a bunch of clutter and mess that were kept inside this building and literally wouldn't have been ready for anything until it got to the point where they decided to repurpose it and use it as like a learning hub initially, something that would help develop it to what we have eventually seen it become as the Performance Center. So while you may look at the Performance Center and think it's fairly picturesque, it looks fairly modern, it looks fairly clean and brand new, it wasn't always like that, and if you'd seen it back in the day, well, you might have had different thoughts, shall we say. Number 7, a match he thinks is seriously overlooked. Triple H thinking that one of his matches has been overlooked? I will not hear of it. But yes, Corey Graves did in fact ask Triple H if he felt like there was one of his matches from the past that had perhaps maybe been overlooked when it came to people talking about the plethora of excellent matches that he has indeed had during his WWE career. And would you believe it, Triple H had one just to hand, ready to go, because of course he did. He's Triple H, probably got an eidetic memory for all of his matches, but the one in particular that he felt perhaps didn't get the love that it should have got was the match that he had with Shawn Michaels on the December 29th edition of Monday Night Raw back in 2003. Now the reason he's particularly proud of this match is for one simple reason, because him and Shawn Michaels decided that they wouldn't plan any of it apart from the finish. So the two of them went out of the curtain, went into the ring and just called it on the fly for the entire match, which he said was pretty much a cathartic experience for the two of them, because this is how pro wrestling used to be back in the day, less planning and more kind of going with the flow and feeling how the match was, a throwback to all of his old idols from the past, like the San Martinos of old. So you can imagine this was like gold dust for Triple H, and no, not the one who gets dressed up like a woman. Now you can go and check that match out, of course, on the WWE Network, and what you'll see is a match that is a typical Triple H match. It's very slow in parts, it's very methodical, it is quite long, because it's a Triple H match, so of course it's going to be, but actually, give him his due, when Triple H and Shawn Michaels get in the ring, there's always going to be magic, and this, well, whether you like it or not, it's no different. These two are absolutely brilliant. When you think about the context of them not having planned any of it, checks out. Number 6, there's an old interview with Lemmy coming soon. Yes, that's right, you did not hear me wrong. Triple H does in fact plan on releasing an old interview with Lemmy that he did back in December 2015. It was a tidbit that he gave to Corey at the end of this podcast, and for any Lemmy fans out there, or indeed Triple H fans, this should be something to look forward to. Now, we didn't exactly specify why it's taken so long for this interview to come to fruition. I mean, 5 years is quite some time for to sit down with Lemmy, but I guess maybe it was right around the time when Lemmy passed away and he didn't feel like he wanted to touch it. That would just be my guess. He didn't mention that, but that would be my interpretation. I'd imagine I would find it quite difficult to go through that as well. Nevertheless, he did say it is planning to come out. That's on his agenda of things to do, and he's keen to get it released, which is cool to see, and I'm very interested to see what it'll actually be about. Number 5, big ass fans. Yes, WWE are indeed legitimately selling this t-shirt, as WrestleMania's biggest fan is of course the big fan that was at the top of the Performance Center during the WrestleMania 36, because there was nobody there obviously, but these gigantic fans are at the top of the Performance Center, and someone decided to try and turn this into memeable content and apparently also into merchable content, which I guess maybe works. But while WrestleMania 36's biggest fan, wink wink nudge nudge, is a t-shirt that exists and you can buy on WWE's shop or shop.com, wherever the hell it is, apparently there's a little bit of an added bit of detail to this, which actually I kind of like. The gigantic fan that you can see in this picture that was taken, the meme-worthy thing that's gone across all social medias and is obviously now on a t-shirt, the company who makes that fan is actually called Big Ass Fans. So yes, not only is this merchandise for WWE, but actually a hell of an advert for the Big Ass Fan company, who make their fans and probably have been absolutely salivating at all the shots they got of their product at WrestleMania up on the ceiling, or now also on t-shirts for the WWE. Number 4, an NXT match was filmed before WrestleMania. Now, on the April 8th episode of NXT, you will probably remember that Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano worked a 48-minute match in a bout that, well, it kind of divided a lot of people, and rightly so. Well, as it happens, that 48-minute match of Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano's was actually recorded before either night of WrestleMania 36 happened to air. That was something Triple H confirmed on this episode of After the Bell. Triple H said that Gargano and Ciampa were given free rein with their match. He said they could do pretty much whatever they want, and they had the added benefit of the fact that none of the WrestleMania matches had been recorded yet, so they literally had nothing to go on. These two had a clean slate and could do as they pleased. And they produced a 48-minute match. Yes, they did. Number 3. I don't know, just make it good. When Vince McMahon called Triple H to tell him that he would be the one who was producing the Bornyard match at WrestleMania 36, as you can imagine, Triple H, much like all of us at home, was fairly intrigued. So he said to his old dad, he said, "Dad, what's it all about? What am I going to do? Tell me more." And Vince McMahon said to him, what do you think he said? He gave him a few ideas, gave him a few nods in the right direction. None of that. He just said, I don't know, just make it look good. Other than that rather vague description, I think we can all agree, the only thing Vince said that he did know was going to be part of it was that the match itself was going to take place in a graveyard. That was the only piece of information Triple H was given. Aside from that, he had to come up with the rest himself. So he worked alongside Taker and Styles, and apparently he said Taker and Styles came up with the majority of the match, including most of the brawls, where they were going to happen and the order they were going to happen in. He said Jeremy Borash was also on hand to help him out and the group out when it came to putting it all together, but didn't mention Michael Hayes, which is interesting because Michael Hayes was said to be involved with this match and a bunch of others from WrestleMania. And one other interesting little nugget of information is that the acreage where this match actually took place, WWE did right next to a residential area, which essentially meant they had to be really careful when it came to making too much noise and making up too much of a sort of scene, I guess, like no explosions or anything is what I'm trying to say. So they had to try and keep those to as much of a minimum as possible without interrupting the neighbours nearby. Even WWE has to play by the rules. Sometimes. Number 2. WrestleMania 36 was the first Triple H has ever missed. Now, despite the fact he was involved in pre-taping the Night 1 main event of WrestleMania, Triple H actually said that the whole WrestleMania 36 experience was quite a painful one for him. He said that since he joined WWE back in mid-1995, WrestleMania 36 was the first production of a WrestleMania that he'd actually missed in all of those years, and it really doesn't seem like it sits well with him. Now, even if Triple H has been injured for a WrestleMania, and it has happened a few times, then he said he's managed to be involved in the production of a WrestleMania in some way, shape or form for every single one he possibly could have. Apart from this one, he wasn't there when it was being recorded in the Performance Center, and as you can imagine, that must be quite a strange feeling for him, really. Now, Triple H didn't exactly reveal whether or not he thought WrestleMania 36 had been a success. He was very careful about that. But what he did reveal was that he actually went from playing Uno with his kids to suddenly watching the biggest show of the year. Can you imagine the transition between those two, despite the fact normally he's usually right in the thick of it? He said, as you can imagine, it was a weird feeling and one that he wasn't sure if he enjoyed. At number 1, with a bullet, he'd happily repeat WrestleMania 36's format. Yes, rejoice! Hallelujah, praise whatever lord or lordess you're kind of into, because Triple H has all but said that perhaps the days of the epic 500 bajillion hour long WrestleManias could indeed be over. And now suddenly just simmer those rejoicings and hallelujahs and praising of Lord down just a fraction, because this is indeed only Triple H's opinion on the matter. This is what he told Corey Graves. He felt like the 2-day format was actually really good. It suited WrestleMania down to a T, and if it was up to him, there would be no more 8-hour-long shows, because who in the right mind needs one of them? He would say, though, that he felt like the Mania magic being sprinkled across 2 days kind of helped both days out, because let's be honest, it gave both main events room to breathe. It gave some of the smaller matches room to breathe as well, and it didn't feel like there was a lot of cramming going on in the card. I mean, we were at WrestleMania 35, and you could have easily cut it at the end of the Kofi Kingston match and had a whole night 2 and given Becky Lynch the real moment that she deserved without a bunch of tired fans waiting until like 1 o'clock in the morning. Either way, I'm rambling a bit. The end note here is that all of that's lovely, but ultimately it is still Vince McMahon's say, and he will be the one who gets to make the call, although we're all kind of hoping he chooses the 2-day affair. Either way, it's a good sign that Triple H is a fan of this, because let's be honest, he's got the ear of Stephanie McMahon, who probably could also have the ear of Vince McMahon, as well as her husband Triple H. Maybe the double team will work and we'll all get to finally just chill the hell out when it comes to WrestleMania and not have to watch an 8-hour show. Don't take this away from me. We can dream, can't we? Yes, we can. We're locked inside. What else are we going to do? So there you have it. Those are all of the things that we learned from Triple H's appearance on Corey Graves' After the Bell podcast. Let us know your thoughts about all of those in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and share. Hit the old subscribe button if you haven't already. You can find the original article for this at whatculture.com/WWE. That's by Jamie Kennedy. It's a bloody good read. Go and use your eyes to read it. It will be a nice time for you. You can find What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. You can follow me on Twitter at It's Adam Nicholas, or if you just want some more videos, there should be some just over here. I've been Adam Nicholas. This has been What Culture Wrestling. It's Friday for me. I don't know when this video is going out, but I am going to not go out and stay indoors. Lovely. Goodbye.